That's right, if you want to just click it then. First, basically, you're setting up a pad. On the way that we actually do it, we usually do a bottom-fed system instead of a top-fed cistern. When you come from the bottom, basically, it's allowing you to actually do different portions of your roof. And we got to put that again. There you go, back to it. When we set it up, all the pipes are actually going to be coming from the bottom, like that, instead of from the top. That's going to allow you not to have any holes in that tank, all vents in the top lid, so that therefore when you're draining the tank, it doesn't actually fold the lid in half, which unfortunately we found that out on some bigger tanks. When you come up from this, it's allowing you to actually pull from one side of the house, because inevitably you're going to have a house that has more than one downspout. So the same idea as Charles had with this house where they're all going underground, we actually try to get above ground tanks for most of the homes because usually they have existing landscape and such, so they can't actually dig a big hole in the ground, or they're on a smaller landscape. So what we'll do is we'll actually trench from, we'll say, 1 or 2 or 3 different downspouts and run them all to the same location and then up the inside of that tank. That tank now can actually be anywhere on your property within legal limits. And you can actually pick more of a suitable location, as in the back of your property near a garden or someplace a little more hidden instead of right in your front porch. And all of those now can be going to that spot. So instead of having a 2,000 square foot house that has to have 5 different tanks, in each corner, you can now run that entire house to one tank. But then again, you're looking at 1,300 gallons of water with an inch of rain, and those are pretty large tanks. So you may want to actually split them. There are a few people in town who kind of go to the extreme, and this particular one had 3 on one side and 2 on the other, and they are only also running a 2,000 square foot house. And by doing that bottom fed system, like you said, you also can link as many as you want together, and you don't have to do them all at the same time. You can put in one cistern with your budget, and then come back later and put in another one. But as long as they're linking from bottom to bottom, just the horseshoe idea with a pipe, you can put as many of those in series as you want. Because the number one complaint, it seems to be that when most people put these tanks in, they put in this huge tank and say there's no way in the world this tank is ever going to fill. And inevitably we get one rain and the phones start ringing and they say, okay, that 6 foot diameter, 8 foot tall tank that I thought was a monster filled up last night. And then they say, okay, that 6 foot diameter, 8 foot tall tank that I thought was a monster filled up last night. And so you're going to want the option of being able to do this on your home, or at least be able to think about that. And also by the bottom fed system, they don't have to be lined up like this. You could actually put one here, and you could actually run the pipe underground again and take it 100 feet away and put it in a different corner of the property and bring that pipe up. Water is always going to be seeking its own level. Same idea as your landscape level and stuff like that. If you put a hose with water in it, so it's the same idea with these. They're always going to fill the same rates, no matter where you put them in your property, provided they're on a semi-level ground. This is one of the type of lids that we actually put on those, because one of the number one complaints that HOAs or even residents is going to have is going to be your mosquito issues and your algae. So when you start putting the baskets in top-fed systems, even though sometimes they're more convenient, you're actually allowing more access to, in one, sun going through that screen basket to grow some of your algae, which is going to cause your water to smell and not hold as long. And as well as you may have mosquito issues if your screen basket's not fine enough. This right here is allowing us to do that and keep a lot of the dust that blows around as well. You don't have that floating styrofoam there just to break down. And also collect a lot of dust and mosquitoes that tend to sit around on that as well. Some of the downspouts and stuff, you guys, if you have gutters on your house already, you're going to know that they're already rectangular. When it comes into putting a lot of the cisterns in, the common standard is usually running round pipe. Just showing that there's actually a lot of adapters to easily switch those right at the gutter and convert all your stuff for you to do it yourself or a company to put them in for you. They're not hard pieces to find. You can find them at Home Depot and at Lowe's. This is another fun little gadget that until a few months ago was really hard to get in the United States. It actually is imported from Australia. It's from Rain Harvesting Company there, and we do carry those. But they actually are really good for when your downspouts are coming down. It's diverting all the leaves and debris, the larger debris, off of that, so you don't have all of those basically clogging up your tank and your filters and stuff on top of the tanks. The thing that we have found with this, though, is they do put a mosquito screen in the bottom of those screens. And if you're going to use one of those, I suggest you take that out, because here in Tucson, the mesquite debris, those mesquite leaflets and the pollen and stuff like that actually clogs those within 5 minutes. And so you don't want that really fine part in the bottom. So pop that out again, but you go with none of those. Pump-wise, there's all kinds of options. You have submersible pumps as shown here with the float switch, so it'll automatically shut off when the water gets too low and you don't burn up your pumps. On a lot of the tanks, you don't actually have to have a pump system. You can actually run with just a gravity-fed head pressure system and actually still run your drip line, which most people think has to have water forcing the water out of there. It's actually not. You can actually run a whole string around your property, provided you're on fairly level ground, just by attaching your hose spigot to the bottom of this tank and just turning it on. So if you're looking at a fairly manual, inexpensive way to go and still run your irrigation, the one that's existing, I would suggest you don't put a pump in yet unless you're running sprinklers, and try that first as just gravity, because you can still run an electronic solenoid, which is just going to open and close electronically. It's not actually run by pressure, so you don't have to have back pressure on that to make that work. Another one here, it's above ground, an external pump. This particular one is actually used in Australia and some other countries as well. It actually has some built-in functions, and it actually shuts down instead of water pressure, which we found seems to be a problem. It actually shuts down by water flow. If it gets less than about half a gallon a minute, it actually shuts down. Whereas the other ones, when you're running with the pressure pumps and pressure switches, pretty much you're going to run it on a drip line or a sprinkler, and as soon as it builds up the 50 pounds of pressure, it shuts off. So you're going to get a pump that's constantly cycling on and off and on and off, and overheat and burn out. So these actually are a better way to go, so that as long as the water's still flowing, the pump runs continuously. So even though it's running longer, it's actually a little less electricity from shutting on and off, and it actually will last longer. This is just showing basically a setup. If you had a scupper box or downspout coming down into the ground, this is one of the ways you would tie into your existing cistern, or not your existing, but the one you're going to build. You run your pipe down there and stubbed off, and so from there, the pipe that you're running to the tank is buried about 6 to 10 inches underground. That way the sun's not getting it, you're not stepping on it, you're not breaking it. But you can run along with that pipe and you're going uphill, downhill, sideways, whatever you want to do, because the end result is both of those standpipes coming up are going to maintain the same level, no matter what you're doing like this to get there. This actually was that extreme makeover project that we did in Tucson here about a month ago. We put in a couple of tanks there, and we actually tried, this is actually a non-toxic, non-carcinogenic epoxy coating for the inside. So if you were to ever want to convert these galvanized tanks to a potable water system, you would need to actually coat those. And this is actually one of the epoxies we tried. If you were to coat the entire tank with this epoxy, it actually is up to food grade quality. It wouldn't be putting your zinc and your aluminum back into the water if you ran just the regular galvanized tank. This is an example of one of the cisterns outstanding all by itself. It doesn't need to be right next to the house. As you can see, if there's a scupper box and a downspout coming down, it's not even near that tank. Yet it's trenched under there and allowing it to sit kind of all by itself, not have to be right by the house. I think there's also another one. This is the other side of that house as well. This tank is actually collecting that scupper box as well as the entire back porch, which has 5 other scupper boxes all coming down and being trenched and fed to the bottom of that too. And so that's why I was saying you can actually put those tanks a lot more convenient places on the side of the house or back in the wall, so it's not where you're entertaining your guests. This is one of our Ninja installers. Basically, it's just kind of showing an idea of what the pad's going to look like before you set the tank into it. Get it all pretty much prepped and finished. You need to keep those pipes short, because the moment you go to try and lift those tanks over those pipes, you realize that the shorter they are, the better. One of our guys fell in. He was trying to save him on that one. And the same thing, basically showing that you need to prep that pretty good before you put that tank in there, because once you put the tank in, all the inside cement around those pipes is not going to be accessible to you. For obvious reasons, you're not going to climb inside of that tank when it's wet and go swimming in there.